What's up, nerds? It's Paul at Radio Free Hammer Hall. Today, I'm going to do a little bit of a return to my personal Nurgle collection, as well as just kind of talking about collecting old Nurgle stuff in general. Kind of go through some of the old models that are in there. Just I don't know, little exploration of things. So yeah, let's get into it. Um, so I started collecting for gaming purposes and then got to have almost everything and was like, well, I might as well just have everything that's currently in production or currently has war scrolls for it. So I did that. And then I started finding cool old stuff and started picking that up and uh, found some good deals around. I was able to pick up the Forgeworld Great Unclean one for a really good deal from a friend. Um, and now I'm just full on into collecting stuff, trying to get the full line of all of the Nurgle stuff that Games Workshop has ever made, which is, for some things, it's a task. Like, I just can't find it. And, so if you happen to have any old stuff that I mentioned here that I'm looking for, feel free to drop me a line, and we might be able to have a conversation. So let's jump into what I've currently got going on. Out of the current plastic range, I've got all of the currently produced like war scrolls, basically, totaling over 14,000 points. And then I've got a whole bunch of retired models and conversions and things that just kind of like count as something else. And going with all of that, I've got more than 5,000 points of all of that stuff. So in total, I'm almost to 20,000 points of Nurgle stuff with the current Maggotkin points. I might be the only person in the world rooting for points increases on this army, just to say I have more than 20,000. So let's jump into what's even currently here. All right, so this army has a massive amount of heroes compared to their war scrolls overall, like just a huge percentage. The Glotkin, the Great Unclean One, which has multiple different builds, Rodigus out of the same kit, Morbidex, Bloab, and Orgots, also all out of the same kit. Horticulus Slimuck's got Rot Spume. Harbinger of Decay has a couple of different builds in there, but currently doesn't matter rules-wise. All the way on down. So at this point, I have at least one of all of these, and the things that are not special characters, I have more than one of typically. There's not too many of those that I actually don't have more than one of. All right. And then units. Man, do I have a lot of this stuff. So back, I want to say it was probably around second edition when I started doing this, where I was like, okay, I want to be able to field XYZ. And so it just, I wanted to be able to field, okay, I've got all of these, I want to be able to field 5 different units of Blight Kings. And then I want to be able to also field them in 10s or 15s. So that ended up just growing and growing and growing. I've got like 15, I'm sorry, 50 of the actual sculpt, and I've got a whole bunch more that are counting as or conversions out of other stuff, a bunch that are in process too, for Blight King. So I mean, I probably have like 55, 60 in total, if you're counting all of that stuff. Plaguebearers, out of the plastic sculpt, I'm at 120 of those. Puscoil Blight Lords, I believe I've got a dozen, and same with Plague Drones. Beasts of Nurgle, got 8 of the plastic ones of those guys. I think I have a dozen Nurglings. 4 units of Rotmire Creed, and 3 Feculent Gnarl Maws. So I've really kind of gone crazy on all of this stuff, and I'm sorry I don't have pictures of like my own army in here. Um, I've done like tours through my army before, and it's a little bit all over the place at the moment, so I didn't want to like have to organize it all and photograph stuff and all of that. So just kind of going with talking about numbers and all of that I've got going on. So let's talk about plastic sculpts. um, Unlike the old metal stuff that was just monopose and single piece models, these are all, for the most part, almost entirely multi-part kits that have multiple options. Just out of the Great Unclean One kit, there's actually 54 different variants of that Great Unclean One. So if we just quickly go through, do the math, there's 3 right hands, 3 left hands, 3 heads, and 2 different abdomens. So that comes out to 54 different variants. One of them being Rotigus, or at least like Rotigus proper. Other builds of it would include bits of Rotigus, but not entirely. There's hundreds of Blight King variants. I did this video a while ago. It's like 350 something different variants, I think. Just building it the way that's in the instructions, because again, they've got at least 2 heads and 2 right arms and 2 left arms and 2 abdomens for each model. A lot of them have 3. I think a couple have 4. So there's just a bajillion different variants of those. And then the same thing for plague bearers. Like there's 10 different bodies and 10 different heads and weapons and arms. Like there's literally thousands of plague bearer combinations. I didn't even bother sitting down and trying to do the math on it. It's a lot. So I'm really just counting like having the war scrolls as having the complete thing, rather than trying to have every single individual variant of all of this stuff. We're just gonna it would just be an insane thing to try and have everything with all of the different variations. So we're not really bothering with that. Other stuff that's currently in production, Grandfather's Gardeners, that is an Underworld's warband. I actually just recently painted those guys up. They don't have AOS rules right now, but I'm still counting them. And then Nurgle's Rotters, the Blood Bowl team. I didn't mention here all of the other Blood Bowl stuff. This is just like what's currently in production, but there's been star players, there was an earlier Blood Bowl team, I believe. So there's just been a whole bunch more of those sculpts. I haven't really tackled collecting the Blood Bowl stuff yet. I do have one Blood Bowl team painted up, and I have another one in box to kind of flesh out everything else. But I haven't ventured into all of the other sculpts and things that are in that particular subset of the Nurgle range. All right, then recently retired stuff. So, with the most recent 3rd edition book, we get a bunch of stuff cut. So Festus the Leech Lord went away, happy little guy who's pictured here. Epidemius, who nobody ever played with. We got a new sculpt for the Harbinger of Decay, so the old Finecast one went away. There was a metal Rotbringer Sorcerer, and then the Wormspat that was another Underworld's warband, and I've been using 2 out of the 3 models as alternate sculpt Blight Kings lately, because they're really cool. Underworld's units are awesome. They're beautiful sculpts, and I want to be able to put them on the table somehow, even if you can't necessarily actually get them in. So, and up next, Forgeworld. All of this stuff now is technically discontinued. And it was never technically Games Workshop to begin with, although this stuff all had War Scrolls in Age of Sigmar in 1st edition. So out of this, I'm actually missing most of this. As I mentioned, the Great Unclean One, the Exalted Greater Demon of Nurgle, did manage to pick him up, and I managed to pick up some Plague Toads. Other than that, I am missing all of this stuff. So if you happen to have stuff you want to get rid of, hit me up. Um, but these are actually people like make fun of like Forgeworld models for being a little dated at this point, but I actually really like what I've got. They're better than I had expected before I picked these guys up. So I still need to paint up my Plague Toads, so maybe I'll have a little bit of a different opinion of them after I actually paint them. But for now, anyway, I'm a fan. So Plague Toads I'm going to be using as counting as Beasts of Nurgle because they're like the exact same size as a Beast of Nurgle, fit perfectly on base. And the Exalted Greater Demon, obviously just running as a Great Unclean One. He's all painted up and based and ready to go. As far as what I'll do with the other stuff, I honestly don't know. Kazakh the Befouled, I think, would probably count as a Harbinger of Decay. Um, Plague Ogres, Bile Trolls, Demon Pox Riders, which are basically just more Plague Toads with Plague Bearers on them. I think all of those would probably also count as Beasts of Nurgle. Um, Plague Ogres and Bile Trolls, some of those actually might be able to be Blight Kings. I don't know. So we'll see. Like once I actually manage to pick them up, see how big they are in comparison to other stuff. Then the big guy, Tamarkan, I actually have never seen this model in person, so I'm not sure how big he actually is. If he's the appropriate size, he's probably going to get played as a Great Unclean One. But otherwise, I have no idea. All right, let's now dig into the really old stuff. All of these guys are old champions of Nurgle from, either when the army was called Slaves to Darkness or Warriors of Chaos or Forces of Chaos, whatever old stuff they called that. I've got about half of these guys so far. Continuing to look for more. Some of them are a little bit hard to find, and these are from like the late '80s, so they are um, they're not quite 100% like fantasy models or like what you would expect because like yeah, 3 or 4 of these guys have guns, which is like not a typical sort of chaos thing, and I don't think they were really intended for 40K either. So I'm not. They're just interesting. They're definitely some cool models. I like them. And then I think there's actually even more that are not included in this particular picture. Because I definitely have at least one other one, I think, that's similar to the guy in the top right. Um, but I think he is a mace. So these guys are cool and fun. I've been slowly picking these up. These were some of like the first older models that I grabbed. I'm still not 100% decided on what they'll count as. Like the guy bottom row, second from the left, I think would probably be a good sorcerer. Same thing with the guy to his right. But I don't know. I don't know. Cool old models for sure. They're fun, quick paint jobs because the older models don't have a ton of detail on them compared to new stuff, and they're not that big, so you can just kind of slap paint on them pretty quickly and get a nice result. All right, getting into some really fun old stuff. So the first Great Unclean One and the first Beast of Nurgle. I actually just picked up the Great Unclean One. I have one of those. I don't have the extra bits, so it's just you know, eh, just one that somebody already built a long time ago. Um, he's a fun, goofy dude. I'm just building a big base for him to sit on top of to count as a regular Great Unclean one, just because I think it would be really funny to have like a doofy old model on the big base that's still like, oh, he's still a Great Unclean one. Um, the Nurglings, I have not actually tried to figure out collecting those yet. Um, I need to figure something out with those. Because there's a lot of cool old ones, and there is a ton of them around on eBay, but they're really expensive for what they are. Um, and you can see like this Beast of Nurgle in the lower right, like how much of that design is still kind of in the current sculpt that's just like been updated. You have like the slug body with just like front legs and the tentacly hair sort of situation. Very cool. Like, and same thing with the Great Unclean one. Like the newer Great Unclean one looks just like this, except it's like substantially larger. Um, he's got the head with the horns and the grumpy face and interesting abdominal bits. Um, this generation didn't have weapons. However, the next generation did. So this one I also just picked up. Does not have quite as many options, but again, really a cool model. Has all of the distinctive features that you would really expect out of the Great Unclean one. It actually has the weapons options that we currently have. He's got his big sword and his big flail, which is pretty cool. And then here, another generation of the Beast of Nurgle. This one is a bit more slug-like. I don't think he has any legs, but he still has his like big tentacly hair, which definitely just cool and fun. And then there's a third generation of these somewhere. I don't know if I have a picture of them. But here, this is the first edition of Plaguebearers. You'll see here that there's 11 of them, and it might be a little hard to tell with this image, but each of them had individual names. Rather than a number, these were either late 80s or very early 90s, like 91. And what I think is really interesting about these and then the second generation of them, they are actually like goofy. Like they have funny faces. And some of them also have nerdlings. And cool thing about these guys that I noticed in painting up one of them, I've got 3 of these guys so far. I don't have the whole collection yet. Working on it, but they're hard to find. But the Nurglings that are on the bases of a couple of them, they have tails, which is a really interesting detail that we don't have in the current sculpts anymore. And they're like that typical like cartoony devil tail that has like the like triangle point on the bottom. So yeah, these guys are fun, and you'll see a lot of the basic idea of what plague bearers are is still like that through line is still in the current models, right? Um, the big thing that's changed is going from goofy faces to gross faces. But everybody's got a sword. Everybody's got some messed up skin and guts hanging out and all of those sorts of things. So really cool that the aesthetic has just kind of flowed through all of that. And this is the second generation. I actually just finished out this collection of 8. They are, again, this is the second generation and they're still really goofy. I think even more goofy than the first generation. All of them have one eye, I believe, which is also interesting because so many of the newer ones have 2. But the features in general still very much there. They've all got their big sword. They've all got sores and wounds and guts hanging out and those sorts of things. All of these are metal sculpts still, and they're fun to paint. I've just been kind of relaxing and painting these guys. found like a good method that I like. And hey, if you are interested in me doing a video on my method for painting these guys, let me know down in the comments. Something that I could do. I've been thinking about, and I just kind of haven't done it because doing those kind of videos is a little bit more of a challenge. But if people want it, I will do it. All right, and then the second generation was the first ones that had a command set. Um, and this was before they really started like sculpting banners. So this banner guy just has like a big post and a crossbar on it. And I guess you had to like make your own banner for it. I'm not really sure what you do with it. Um, the musician here is a guy like just banging on like a chime or a gong. Um, now we have like a piper, which I feel like the old gong guy makes more sense for plague bearers. It's weird to see them playing like blowpipes and like with his pinky out too, which is just an odd thing. All right, and then our third generation of metals. This is where everybody started to get gross. Um, all of them also have uh, they have like these swords that are kind of deviating from what had been in the past, and we've gone away from that again. Um, and then number three, also, that isn't. I originally thought that was like a weird shaped sword in his hand, or he was holding it weird. And then I looked closely at it, and I'm like, no, he's just got like a finger that's like a giant talon. So, these guys still cool and fun. Been enjoying painting these quite a bit as well. I've got the full set of these guys now too, so it's really just that first edition that I'm trying to pick up. And then here we have the command set. You can see here that they, like now your musician is a guy ringing a bell instead of just a gong, which I think still works out nicely and um, has that classic like Nurgle iconography on it. Your banner is like a big chaos star, so they're finding ways to do a banner that's not really a banner. That's just like an icon, because these are still metal sculpts. And then the Plaguebearer champion, random fun fact, he's actually in two pieces. That his left hand there that's pointing is actually a separate piece that you have to glue on. And that's it. I'm actually missing the third generation of Beasts of Nurgle in my pictures here, but there was a third generation of that as well, and that's the one that was just before the plastic sculpt that we got with the first Maggotkin book. So I think people that have been around for a while are probably quite familiar with that. I haven't picked up the other two Beast of Nurgle kits yet. Everything that I've found just feels really expensive, and I don't want to spend that much money on a Beast of Nurgle. Anyway, this stuff has been really fun to try to collect. I think there's also a few other things out there. Like there was like Mordheim Carnival of Chaos. There was a couple of plague bearers, I think. So if I missed anything as well, let me know down in the comments. But that is ending our little tour of all old Nurgle stuff for now. It's been fun. I'll once I get more of this all painted up, and more of it collected, I'll do a video with pictures and stuff of my own collection. But for now, I will say goodbye to all of you. I'll talk to you later.